Hey geeks, welcome to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're back. We had a show last week and we have a show this week, 2 weeks in a row. Huh? Lucky you, or me, I don't know. Anyway, I'm excited about this show for the second time. I'm having Jim Wilcox on the show. I spoke at his code camp a number of years ago and I really liked it and I wish I could go back, but I'm here. So anyway, we're going to be talking about Copilot. So if you have any questions about, Microsoft's announcements last week around Copilot, have you tried Copilot, things like that, please post your questions now for Jim and I, and we'll see if we can get them answered. I'm definitely not a huge Copilot expert at this point. I'm just learning how to use it in Visual Studio, which I did tweet about this, that, one of the things, I've been hounding Microsoft for ever since .NET Core came out and now .NET, is that there's no way to easily create unit tests. And so I did try Copilot and it does actually create pretty good unit tests. You have to tell it to do all code paths. It doesn't seem to do it by itself, but if you tell it, it will do it. And so maybe that will make it easier for us to create unit tests, because I don't think anybody really likes doing that. But it's very, very important to to write quality code, because how do you know if your code is good if you don't have anything testing it? So anyway, so show 103, Jim Wilcox, and let's get going. I just have a couple slides before Jim comes on. As you all know, I released last month. I released my fourth edition of my code performance book. I worked on for many months, and probably abused my computer with all the benchmark tests that I ran. But anyway, it's out. I hope you go get a copy. It's on Amazon. Anywhere you can get Amazon books, you can get my book. I hope you go get a copy. As with the last edition before this one, I learned a lot with this edition, especially because there's been a lot of changes in .NET 8. Some things that were wildly different in .NET 6 and even 7 have actually come really a lot closer in .NET 8. So that's good. But some things have slipped, some things have gotten better, some things about the same, but it's all in my book. And I give you all the tips and tricks and all the best practices to quickly, get your code as performant as possible, because we all know that, especially in the cloud, you get charged per execution time. If you can cut your execution time down by a half, you save half, right? It's as simple as that. And well, it's not really that simple, but it's easy. And I just hope that most companies work on that, because it's very, very important to be concerned about performance. It always has been, but now that we're getting charged because of performance, it's even more important. So I hope you go get a copy of that book. And at the beginning of this year, I released the 8th edition of my coding standards book. It's the only pure .NET coding standards book out there that I'm aware of. It's my biggest book I've ever released. I even have a hardcover copy if you want to get that too. I think it's 560 pages now, and it's really, really big. And anyway, I hope you go get a copy of that to make sure that your company is writing high quality code, and you get less less calls from QA because you have bugs. And speaking about less calls from QA, I just recorded yesterday a new episode of 256 Seconds with dotNetDave, where I'm going to be explaining my methodology on how I trap and deal with exceptions. And so part 1, I'm done with. I'll be releasing that probably this weekend. And then part 2, I'll probably do next week. And so I hope you'll stay tuned to dotnettips.com. But everything I talk about in these 2 videos is in my Coding Standards book. And so I hope you get a copy. All right, the interview. Jim has been in this field for 30 years, mostly delivering software solutions to clients. Jim is a hands-on architect, advisor, coach, and author. He's been a community leader in the Granite State software development landscape, which includes Boston, for over a decade, and has been a Microsoft MVP since 2019. And he runs a code camp and that I spoke at, that I mentioned earlier. So welcome, Jim.
Hey, thank you. First of all, I just want to say congratulations on the new books and stuff like that. And definitely appreciate you inviting me to be here. It's awesome and an honor to be here. So
yeah, you're welcome. And I woke up this morning and I couldn't remember. Do we get awarded this month or next month?
Usually July 1st. So yep.
They change it all. I mean, you know how many times they've changed it since I've been a Microsoft MVP? I can never remember. I remember the month we have to be done with, submitting everything, but I always forget the month that, so I was checking my email I was checking my email this morning going, well, I guess it's not this month.
I understand. It's still a little nerve-wracking. It's like, for as much as we end up getting involved in community and stuff like that, it's never a guarantee. And it's always just a little bit like, did I get rewarded?
Yeah, I don't get so much anxiety anymore, because this will be my 18th award, I think, and so I've kind of learned how to not worry about it too much. Like, I can't even remember which month I get it, right? Because because I think if I knew, then I would be more anxious, right? And I just go, yeah, well, I'll get it. I'll maybe not get it. It'll probably end up in my junk folder as usual, and which I don't know why, Oh, yeah, hey, Outlook, when I send an email to someone and they reply, don't freaking put it in my junk folder. Jeez, come on. I mean, I forget who I emailed. Oh, it was for my panel show, right? And that I'm working on, I told you about before the show started. And, I sent my first invite for the panel show, and he replied. I kept waiting for a couple of days going, well, how come he hasn't replied? And then I look at my junk folder, it's there. I'm going, come on, Outlook. Why do you do that?
Yep.
So anyway, I wish I didn't have to look at my junk folder all the time. So we're going to talk about Copilot. Everybody watching today, please send in your questions about Copilot or anything else, basically, and we'll try to get them answered as soon as possible. And also, if you're watching live, please put in the chat where you're listening from. I'm always curious who's listening to the show. I mean, I get reports from Simon once a year or so, but I like to hear it live too. So anyway, so what do you want to talk about first?
So actually, Copilot and Microsoft Build. So for the kids at home, Microsoft Build was last week, and I've appreciated the opportunity to be a part of Microsoft Build for years, and I feel like I've seen some kind of pivotal but subtle things happen there over the years. Like for example, I was there for the year when Microsoft announced that they had a bunch of classically technical announcements, new products and all that stuff. But the underlying big thing is, yay, we're no longer a monopoly. That means we can innovate again. But like last year, so we had this interesting thing pop up in late 2022. It was this thing called ChatGPT. Mm. And in a lot of ways, ChatGPT was kind of a what I call an iPhone moment for artificial intelligence. It was like, everybody was playing with artificial intelligence. It was kind of there, but it was mostly for geeks. Sort of like the smartphone was back in 2007, and nobody really cared until all of a sudden Apple came out with the iPhone.
Right.
Then suddenly everybody's got a smartphone, and we're all playing with it and stuff like that. And this is kind of what happened in 2022, late 2022, with ChatGPT. So it shouldn't necessarily surprise people in build of 2023. That Microsoft all of a sudden came out with a slew of Copilot stuff, all based kind of on ChatGPT. And it really kind of, I think the thing that surprised me most was how surprised everybody was that this happened. Microsoft has this really, really long history of, working with artificial intelligence or trying to make digital assistants. So it goes, they kind of forget that it goes back as far as like 1996, I want to say, 95.
With Clippy?
Actually, no, Microsoft Bob.
Oh, Bob, yeah.
Yeah. So there was Bob, and then there was Clippy, and everybody remembers. And at this point, we've gone through this like phase with Clippy where everybody hated Clippy, and now everybody's a little bit nostalgic about it.
He shows up at the MVP summits every once in a while too, right?
Yep. And of course Cortana. And Cortana was a pretty big shift. It was a little bit of a Me Too move after some of the stuff with Siri and stuff like that. But really, Cortana was a decent step forward, and Microsoft did a lot to integrate Cortana into various platforms and features and stuff like that. So when Cortana kind of faded out, it's not like they actually got rid of it. They actually were very smart about it. They kind of feature flagged it out of Windows and hid it from people until we had our iPhone moment with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden they turned all those features that they never really stopped developing. They kind of kept going. They knew at some point there would be an AI model that would work for this. And, all of a sudden they've got Copilot everywhere. So the theme at Builds 2023 was that everything was Copilot.
Yeah.
There was Copilot kind of like as a sidecar to like all of these different aspects of Microsoft's products and offerings and platforms. So step into Build 2024, and we get a different message. Like just before Build, literally the Monday before they opened for the keynote at Build, they had a separate sort of extra event that wasn't even at the convention center that Build was at. It was at Microsoft's main headquarters, where they announced Copilot Plus PCs. And the Copilot Plus PC is literally built from the hardware up. It's bare metal, meant to be an AI processing system.
Right.
So the funny part there is, everybody's so concerned that Microsoft is doing this, it's all going to run locally on your system. So, you don't have to worry about it quite so much. It's not like it's like, taking all this stuff and running it through, some other AI model somewhere else. It's running it right on your machine. So, but they also announced at Build, in tandem with this, actually, I think I watched the video for the Copilot Plus PC, and technically they announced the Windows Copilot runtime, complete with the Windows Copilot library built into Windows, at the Copilot Plus PC event. So technically it wasn't actually a Build announcement. It was really actually announced before Build. And what that does is it kind of makes this subtle distinction where essentially AI is now part of the platform. Whereas before, everything was Copilot, this little sidecar out there that did this, Copilot AI stuff. Now everything is Copilot. Copilot is everything. I'm sorry. That's the punch.
No, I know. That's I during I think after the first couple hours of Build last week, I put out a tweet and I said, forget about Skynet. In Terminator, Copilot is going to take over the world if Microsoft has anything to do with it, right? Because that's the message I got, is Copilot is everything these days. Kind of like when, the internet became really popular, or cell phones, now we're having a Copilot or an AI, like you said, revolution, right?
Yeah. And it really is huge. It's And I understand the Skynet reference and stuff like that. I am still looking forward to finding out what some of these features are actually going to look like, because they only announced the that it's in development, that it's going to be available eventually, but they haven't given a full timeline on when it will be generally available and stuff like that. So definitely more to come on that, but it will be interesting how that comes together. And I still don't think we're going to have to live in fear of our PCs at any time in the near future.
No, I don't think so either.
They'll be smart, but they won't be that smart. They won't be communicating quite that much. But the other thing, of course, is that all of this is sort of intended to be agency for developers. So basically they're exposing these libraries and code bases and that sort of thing. And what I found myself thinking about as you were talking about your books at the beginning of the show here was that it would be really awesome to train a Copilot model with your books.
Yeah.
And
it would be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
You could actually make a product out of that at some point. That's something to consider as far as that goes.
I know. I've been thinking about how do I, take something that I've worked on like that and then turn it into something like, a chat or, some kind of bot, or even, I think yesterday I was thinking, maybe I should do a dotNetDave Alexa app, right? And so, yeah, I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But so before I forget, so you were at Build, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
I had the honor for the past couple of years. I've been very honored to be part of the hub. So I'm actually, because of being a Microsoft MVP, I get invited to be part of the staff that staffs the expert booths up in the hub at these events. And I got to go to Build last year as that, and actually went to Ignite for the first time last year, also as an expert. Very different audiences, different crowds. It was very cool to see the differences there. But so I was at Build. Didn't get to go to as many of the sessions, but I did get to talk to a lot of people, and it was great to hear what they were talking about. So
what was the, general feeling from the developers about, Copilot and AI? Are they excited, worried, afraid, everything, or?
Very mixed. So there's but it's also kind of, For the people who are afraid, that's their primary concern. For the people who are excited, that's their primary thing. So it's interesting to see that whatever adjective you would use for it, it's kind of a superlative in your view of it. So a lot of people are very excited, especially at the conference itself, because they see the opportunities, the ways that they can enhance Copilot, make it sort of theirs, put features into it that improves whatever it is. It doesn't have to be coding. It might be writing styles. It might be how to manage who knows, HR policies, or something along those lines, because there's a ton of different problem domains that this can contribute to, and make people's lives a little bit easier, a little bit better, as long as it doesn't start hallucinating stuff.
Start thinking for itself.
Yeah. Well, it's law of probabilities. It's occasionally going to come up with a doozy. So
yeah. It's I watch a lot of sci-fi as much as I can, and I'm always I always pay a lot more attention when there is kind of AI and androids involved, right? Especially because we're just at the infancy of that right now, right? And
yes.
So it's interesting to me, at least, to see what these super creative people are thinking what it might be like in the future, right? The one thing that I've been seeing in like, unfortunately, the last season of Star Trek Discovery just ended. I'm really bummed out. I really like that show,
yeah.
But the one thing that I've been seeing in some shows like that is that they don't fly their spaceships anymore, right? They have a computer, they have AI do it, right? And so I think if you look back at the older stuff like Star Wars and even Star Trek and things like that, they kind of got that wrong, right? Because the natural evolution is we're not going to be driving cars, we're not going to be driving, I mean, heck, they don't even drive airplanes now, right? And barely, we're not going to be driving spaceships. We'll just plug in a coordinate and it'll just do it, right? And
absolutely.
yeah.
So I think Windows and Microsoft are they're kind of trying to be careful in the same way that, like, self-driving cars are and stuff like that. The industry actually had to back away from self-driving cars, and ironically, they have a safer driving record than the average human does.
Yeah.
But because it's a machine, everybody's like, no, we can't have that. So
right.
So they've backed out of it, and they're slowly introducing features again, like the adaptive cruise control and the lane assist, and just little bits and pieces that'll slowly get society comfortable with letting AI take this little bit of control and just enhance your driving experience with it. And I can imagine that they'll keep reintroducing these little features as they go along over the next probably decade, before they finally reintroduce self-driving cars again, and people are generally comfortable enough with letting that happen.
Yeah, I always thought when they were starting to work on that and everything, and again, I'm just being an armchair quarterback here, but I thought they should have worked harder on the semi trucks before they started working on cars, right? Because to me, that's an easier get, in the beginning, because, generally they're only on the highways, and that can, be a lot easier to deal with than street roads, especially, street roads that constantly change and have construction and, all those other things, right? Where highways are, a lot easier to deal with, right? And I kind of wish they would have. I know they're working on the self-driving trucks, but I kind of wish they put more money into that first, right?
Yeah,
more development into that first, right? Yeah.
So they actually For folks, actually, I happened to catch not too long ago that there is a brand connected, interestingly enough, at least by name, to Tesla, called Nikola. And Nikola is all about self-driving rigs.
Yeah.
And so there is definitely work being done there, and it's certainly a very sound observation. It totally makes sense that these vehicles are just kind of doing their drone level thing on a regular basis. So why not?
Yeah. And because I think, unfortunately, especially the way that some consumers have misused, self-driving, like in Tesla, like, they go to sleep or they eat a meal while the car's driving. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
We can't do that yet. We're not, it's not, whatever that Tom Cruise movie is, you can't do that yet, right? Someday, but not now. Right.
So that Minority
Report. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
That was a great movie.
Yeah. It got, the one thing I always liked about Minority Report, which still isn't happening now, which I really wish it would, especially on streaming services, is when you walk by stuff and it advertises to you, right? It's not a general advertisement. It's targeted to you, right? And I thought by now we would have targeted ads in streaming services and cable and stuff, and we don't. I mean, I'm going, what are you waiting for? I mean,
Well,
why do I need to see ads for feminine products, right? I'm a guy, I live by myself. Why do I need to see ads like that, right? It makes no sense, right?
So
we have the capability, right?
It reminds me a lot of, actually, a little bit going back to Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I found myself interested to note that when Discovery Season 2 came out, the whole season was basically ultimately a reason to mistrust artificial intelligence. And then Picard Season 2 came out almost in complete contrast, where it was a reason to appreciate artificial intelligence. So it was both sides of that argument. And I can't help but feel like the reason why we don't have those, where are my flying cars? But, where are my relevant ads, that'll help me remember what I actually do need.
Right.
When I go to the store, instead of things that have no relevance to me whatsoever. I think it's a little bit of a combination with that level of the balance between fear and excitement. It just goes back and forth.
Yeah, so. The fear is warranted, right? But there's, we've been watching movies forever about warning us about the problem with, artificial intelligence, right? And so it's kind of baked in, right? And we're going to experience some of that for sure, right? And but it's like being afraid of games. Right, it's like being afraid of the automobile or something, right? I'm sure maybe they were afraid about it. Maybe they were afraid of the automobile when it came out, right? And
just don't give AI control of the global thermonuclear weapons. Come on.
Yeah. There needs to be some kind of human check somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or an off button, or disconnect button.
Unplug that.
Because I think even was it the latest? No, I think it was the latest Jennifer Lopez movie that just came out last week on Netflix about. I think they were. I forgot where I was going, but there's something with AI and her and we've seen multiple shows say that once AI learns how destructive we are, right, then it tries to either destroy us or take away all our rights, right?
Yeah. It either wants to end us or nerf us.
Right. And I actually don't blame AI, to tell you the truth, because I mean, it never never seems to end. But yeah, it's. I always kind of like those shows because it kind of looks at this kind of problem from a different angle, right?
Yeah.
A more logical, angle than what wars and all these things really are based on. It's not much logic going on there, right? So anyway, we're getting off track now, but
That's okay.
but yeah, Copilot. All of you watching, Copilot is going to be in everything soon. I for one was kind of surprised at the Build conference just how much Copilot is going to be in freaking everything, right? I knew they were working on it. I know it's in Visual Studio. I've been using it, but it just seems like it's coming in every single Microsoft product somehow, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it really, on some level, I find myself feeling like it shouldn't totally be a surprise just because Microsoft has been on this trajectory for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, we always kind of knew that we were headed that way. And ChatGPT really just kind of opened that up and got people to, start playing with it, being less afraid of it, understanding what it's really actually capable of, what it's not capable of,
Right.
and all that stuff. So it really feels a little bit like, sort of those little features, the adaptive cruise control and the lane departure warnings and nudges with the steering wheel and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it really was, at Build 2024, Copilot really is everything. I mean, right down to the bare metal of the platform now. So
yeah.
that's a big step for folks who are used to it being a sidecar feature.
Yeah.
So
are you aware of any other computer companies like Apple or somebody like that also working on an AI computer?
So I've been thinking about that too, because Microsoft spent so much time getting out from under the umbrella of being a monopoly. They spent so long being shackled to the FTC to deal with that, and now here they are, kind of doing something that nobody else is really doing. They're innovating in a way that's very bold and very almost daring. And I don't see Apple really doing this. Siri is still Siri.
I never use it.
Yeah. Well, every time I try to use it, of course, because I've said it, I'm just noticing my phone is now listening to me.
Of course.
Sorry, Siri. But anyway, yeah. So it's talking to me now. But anyway, it just, I don't see any other company really in a position even to do what Microsoft is doing with this. It's like, well, Apple's not there. Google doesn't really have the opportunity. Their Chromebooks aren't, they just don't have the horsepower and were never designed to. So who else might even get in on the game? And I do worry a little bit about that, because I think of the rule of nines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but the idea that the first company to market ends up introducing the audience to a product,
right?
And then the second company comes out and dominates it,
right?
So this is actually what happened with the Macintosh and Windows. So Microsoft got the 90%, Apple got the 9%, and then everything else was the 0.9. Then the iPhone kind of did something similar. The iPhone came out, and then Android came out and became the 90%.
Right.
And then everything else, rest in peace, Windows Phone. But became the 0.1%.
Right.
And,
Right.
so I'm a little bit curious to see how that might play out in this market where Microsoft is first this time. I don't see anyone even really on the horizon to challenge them. I mean, of course, other companies could.
Sure.
NVIDIA, it certainly has the hardware for it. Intel could potentially come along with something. Who else? AMD, maybe. It would take a hardware heavy, organization to do that.
Yeah.
And potentially any of the PC makers could, come out with some kind of challenge. But I don't see Dell, for example, coming out with a new operating system or, something like that. Windows is too well established at that point. And on that level, it was probably a very smart move on Microsoft's part to bake it into the operating system because, now it's, I hate to say it, it kind of reminds me of what Microsoft did with Internet Explorer back in the day when they baked it into the operating system.
Right. Look at all the problems they had because of that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they had so many issues with that just because Windows came preloaded with Internet Explorer. All the other companies were just so upset about that, right?
And there are other concerns that they have to worry about too. So here's Microsoft, and they're basically slurping up all the sum of human knowledge off the internet. And okay, so these companies have made this content available publicly and free. So you can go and visit a website and read the content off of it, but so can their AI, and Microsoft is able to absorb and then expose all of that content in their own chat window instead of directing you to their website.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's some legal, concerns and challenges ongoing with that kind of thing, but so far they've managed to navigate that. So, it's pretty impressive.
And I for what I use AI pretty much almost every day, right? And I'm a heavy user of ChatGPT because that's what I use to edit my books now, and because I can't pay for an editor, right? So I use ChatGPT. I don't have it write my book. I have it just edit it, make me sound better, just like any other editor. But now I forgot where. Gosh dang it! I had a brain fart again. Two in one show. I forgot where I was going, but ChatGPT it's like you said, has really kind of opened up the doors for the general public, I would say, right?
Unleash the hounds, yeah.
Right, because anybody can go try it now. You don't have to pay for it. Currently, you don't have to pay for it, and you can try it out. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I like it so much better than search engines. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I'm sure they'll figure out how to put ads in the future, but it just tells you the information. I don't have to scroll through pages and pages and clicking on 20 articles that don't have nothing to do with what I search for, right? And search engines have always upset me because it just shows me stuff it's not even there. I didn't even look for, right? I'm even talking about job sites too, looking for a job. Same thing. They're terrible, right? And I put in CSharp, I get almost everything but CSharp, right? And it's it's in the beginning, CSharp wouldn't even work because of the pound sign, right? And they finally fixed that, but I am looking forward to not using Google anymore or even Bing, and just use something like Copilot to look up stuff. And, I know they've added Copilot into Edge and it works okay. I haven't had the best luck with it so far. ChatGPT still seems to work better for me, but yeah, it's coming. AI, we're all using AI. If you have Alexa in your or Google Home or whatever, you have AI in your home already, right?
To be fair, actually, if you've ever gone through like Netflix, for example,
Mm,
you've been using AI. It's
yeah,
actually a lot more pervasive than most people realize.
yeah.
It's very good at seeing what you've been interested in the past and
Hmm.
making recommendations based on that. But that's also one of its weaknesses.
Right.
This was a conversation I had with a bunch of students at actually at Southern New Hampshire University relatively recently. They were like, how do we keep our jobs,
Hmm.
going forward with this?"
Hmm.
And so my recommendation to them was to recognize that ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is very historically well, what's the term? It's very history centric.
Right. Right.
It knows where things have been statistically. It keeps track of that information, and when you ask it a question, it draws on probabilities based on what has happened in the past.
Hmm.
So the real relevance going forward in the future, in a world where artificial intelligence has a very long memory and very good at calculating statistical probabilities, is to really come up with something that AI has never seen before.
Hmm.
And we actually see this in programming, especially anytime you start working with a programming language that there isn't much history for in like GitHub, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's useless.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't ask it a thing because it
No.
is
No.
not going to help you.
Yeah. And I use the free version of ChatGPT currently, and I do plan to pay for it, but right now I'm using the free version, and that's what, at least 2 years old. So if you ask it, anything on like .NET 8, it can't answer it for you, right? Because it just came out, and so yeah, there's that history
Yeah,
issue right now that it's not real time. Some of it is, but mostly it's not real time.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
history, right?
I actually had that issue just last night. I wanted to play with so .NET 8 added key dependency injection, which
Mm.
I wanted to play with, and it I asked it. I said, "All right, what does that look like? I haven't touched it yet." So it came up with some suggestions that were completely wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm like, this is in Copilot,
yeah,
from GitHub, but it just doesn't have the history yet to be able to actually suggest the right answers. So
yeah.
statistically
ChatGPT isn't
speaking,
great at running code either.
yeah. So keep innovating, keep coming up with new things. In a way that's a good and a bad thing, because if you want consistency and reliability and stuff like that, relying on the old standards, but in a world where these machines know what we've been doing,
Hmm.
if you want to keep that edge, that's all about innovation. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
and
matter what field you're in there.
did you feel that any of the, and I know this probably differs on how long you've been in the tech world, but when you were at the Build conference last week, did you notice anybody like being worried about ChatGPT taking their jobs, or making it harder to get jobs or things like that?
So I think that that's a little bit of a bubble audience. Pretty
Hmm.
much everybody there was there because they're excited about what's going on and they want to be a part of it. And I'm
Yeah.
totally there with that. I mean, I tell people Microsoft Build is my tribe.
Hmm.
So I absolutely love being there. But there's a fair amount of that. Since being at Build, I've noticed a little bit more of that. There's definitely sense of fear, a little bit of mistrust, and that's kind of natural.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's human nature to be. Um, well, it's also a survival thing too. So.
Hmm. Well, anytime there's a big revolution in our history, this happens, right?
Yes.
It happens every single time. The Industrial
Yes.
Revolution, the Computer Revolution, the
The
internet.
world
Now
is
we have,
round.
yeah. And I still can't believe people don't think that's true. But I don't know about you, and I'll let you say what you think. But I was kind of caught up in the fear in the beginning, but then I looked at it. Well, I thought about it for a little bit, and I go, AI is just a tool, right? It's just, I look forward to AI because I want to write less code, right? Because we really should be out of the job of writing the same boilerplate crap over and over again. I mean, that's why, we all have libraries. I have my Spargin libraries, right? It's all this common stuff I've been writing since .NET 2, right? And so, I think a lot of coders think that, coding is our job, and it's not really. Our job is, solving problems or creating features, to run on a computer to sell product, right? That's our job, right? Or to sell a service. And the more time we can focus on features and requirements and things like that, which lately, the last decade or more has gotten less, right? Because of all this stuff they're piling onto kind of forcing software developers to do these days. I'm looking forward to doing less code and just saying, hey, I need to do blah, blah, blah. You write the code. I'll check it, of course. And, or we'll have something else check it. But I want to write less code. I want to solve more problems. That's where I get my joy. My joy isn't writing code. Right? My joy is smiles on people's faces when I deliver an application that they love, right? That to me is delivering the solution. Joy. Right. And I've talked and written about this many, many times, and that's always my favorite part of my job is that, right?
Yes. Oh, I totally understand. It's funny because I see companies out there do some relatively tricky things. Like I've seen relatively large companies build their own software development platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Facebook. Facebook did that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, in this day and age, it's like, okay, so there's some edge to that, but they're not good edges. When I stop and think about it, like a couple of the companies that I worked for did some development for, they had actually developed their own presentation language. And in order to work for them, you had to know their language. And while you were working on their language, you were letting all of your other more marketable skills go to waste.
Yeah.
And so what you end up with is a situation where you end up locked into working for them because you suddenly have this gap on your resume where you're working on this thing called, well, for lack of a better term, I'll call it FireSpark, but to protect the innocent, I guess. Yeah. This thing that nobody else has ever heard of, and you can't translate that to a marketable skill.
Yeah.
So
I think about the people going to Facebook. I know Facebook pays a lot of great money, and if you want to go there and stay there, great. But if you want to go there and learn something and then go somewhere else, it's not going to work out very well for you, right? Because nothing they do there you could use on the outside, right? Because it's all proprietary OS. And software, right? Yeah. and that that even sometimes when I'm interviewing people, and depending where they're coming from, I know certain how do you say this, certain industries, you don't learn near as much, to be marketable on the outside as you do in other industries. I'm all talking about tech, but I'm talking about different areas of tech, right? It's difficult sometimes where you actually can lose. And I've even told people, you need to leave this company, right? Because you're not going to be marketable once you leave here. I'm telling you right now, you need to leave, and for your own future, right? Yeah.
Getting back to the original topic too, Copilot is absolutely useless for that kind of stuff. Unless you take the time and effort to like really, figure out how to tune your Copilot models to take advantage of that. But that's
Right.
still something that's, people are figuring out how to do and stuff like that. And it's never a great story because you just don't have the code history. It's all, good news. It's innovation, but you're going to end up kind of out in the cold with that. So it really is, there's a balance to it. So
yeah, definitely. But like I said, I look forward to AI helping us. It's just, like I said, it's just a tool. To me, it's like a paintbrush and paint, right? That's what it is. Paint is a tool to express your creativity somehow, right? And AI to me is the same thing. It's just a tool that we use. I'm sure a lot of people will misuse it, of course. That's just unfortunately human nature. But once we get through this in the next 10 or 20 years, hopefully, we'll be figure out where we can, find the happy medium. To me, at least, right?
Yep.
I won't be around for that, but I think that's what will happen, right?
Yeah. I have this little fantasy that someday when I retire in 20, 50 years, because all right, I'm probably not going to retire anytime soon. But anyway, this little fantasy that someday my grandkids will come and ask me how to fix the little glowing blue orb thing that's broken for them, and I'll be like, well, this isn't what it was in my day, and we'll have to ask the AI of the day to help us out. So.
Well, I even thought recently, probably after Bill, that I was thinking, so how is AI going to be used when I'm in the old folks' home, right? how is there going to use AI to keep me, keep my brain going and keep me engaged and keep me alive longer, right? How is that going to happen when I'm in an old folks' home somewhere someday, right?
Yeah.
And because I think, just like a lot of other technologies we've had, there's huge applications for like medical and, things like that truly help humans, right? Is I could see a lot of that. And I was even last year working for a company, where we were building, it wasn't AI based, but it was kind of, an engine that basically, a lower paid health worker, sees a patient and types in blah, blah, blah. And then the computer spits out everything they have to do, right? All the tests, all the reports, everything they have to do, AI just spits it out for them, right? So they don't have to remember it. And so, and then even, using AI to discover treatments for new diseases, I think that's going to be huge, right? And so there's a lot of good, but kind of like we've talked about in the beginning, is we need to make sure we have the brakes ready to put on anytime we need to, right? Because it can definitely get out of control, and I'm sure people are already trying to figure out how to get it out of control already. But it definitely can go off the rails quick, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. And there are. It's like anything else. The term that people use for it, of course, is jailbreaking, which actually kind of goes back to the iPhone too. It's like the concept of being able to get it to run whatever you want it to, and all that stuff is always going to be alluring. But I'd rather be jailbreaking life myself.
That's true. I'd rather spend time on life than trying to jailbreak a piece of hardware or something, right? It's I saw that on a sci-fi show the last couple nights where they were doing that. You broke this and you blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, I can.
Yep.
Well, we're kind of reaching towards the end. Is there anything you want to talk about before we go? Or mention? Or
in addition, let's see what else.
When's your next code camp?
So my next code camp is probably going to be fall. Haven't totally figured out all the details yet, though. It is actually, now that it's June, it's time to start planning on that.
Yep.
Boston Code Camp is already on the books. That's one that I also help out with in addition to Granite State Code Camp. We just had New England Give Camp. Excuse me, New England Give Camp, which was a fun event where we got a bunch of nonprofit organizations together and helped them out with some technical debt that they needed to take care of that they didn't have the expertise to manage.
Yeah.
And that's something that we do every year as well. So actually, Granite State Code Camp, I'm thinking that it might have a little bit more of an AI edge to it this year. It might even require a little bit of a rebrand, but just because of that, because of all this Copilot stuff, it's like I'm not sure what we might call it. It's like Granite State Copilot Camp.
I don't know if I put a marketing name on it like that, but But I while you were saying all that, you started making me miss code camps because it's been a long time since I've spoken at a code camp. We don't have code camps in Southern California anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a shame.
I know we used to have like 3 a year, and now we have nothing. And Arizona's not doing one anymore, so there's like nothing in my area close by.
COVID kind of did a lot of that during the COVID era. I was very, very proud to say that the Granite State community was the only code camp that never stopped. We went online while we had to hunker down, but we managed to keep an event going every year despite the oh gosh, the word just slipped out of my head. The not curfew, quarantine.
The quarantine, yeah.
Yeah. So despite the quarantines and all that stuff, we managed to keep going every year. Boston couldn't do that, but we actually found a way through teams and all that stuff. It was really awesome to be able to keep that going, and definitely a tradition that I'm psyched to be a part of and keep going here too. So
yeah, and so all of you out there, if you haven't been to a code camp, please try to go to one. It's still probably one of my funnest speaking things is to go to a code camp, and if you're a younger person, step up and start helping, right? Because we're getting older now, and we've been doing this a long time, and we're going to age out of this, running code camps and stuff, and we need younger blood coming in and spearheading the future of this, right?
Very happy to help other people spin up code camps in their regions and stuff like that too. So hit me up if you're interested and don't know where to start. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, because it's not easy. It's a big hard task to do, right? But it's very rewarding. Yeah. So the last question, since this is your second time on the show, this is a question I ask all my guests the second time, and that is, what brings you happiness in your tech career?
Ooh. Honestly, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier is delivering those solutions that just kind of hit the nail on the head. That's what it always comes down to, making people's lives better, applying technology and that sort of thing, and it's always been a motivation for me. In fact, actually, I just moved into this office space and was unpacking stuff for the shelves behind me and stuff like that. And one of the things that I found was actually this right here, which is actually an award that my sorry, it's a little bit tough to read.
Yeah, you posted on Twitter today, right?
Yeah. And it's like that's what it's really always been about for me since I was literally a kid in high school. Actually, probably even back before that, was just building things that help people, or one way or another are fun to mess around with, or just do stuff important for them. So
yeah. Well, thanks again for being on the show again. It's been great catching up with you, and good luck in your code camp coming up and everything. I wish I could come and speak, but it's you're a long way from me. So
I understand. We'll figure something out, man. But I
yeah.
really appreciate you having me on the show again, and look forward to next time, whatever works out there. So
great. Well, thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the weekend, and enjoy your new job.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was a great discussion about Copilot and AI and whatever else Jim and I went off topic with. And so I don't know what the plans are for the next coming up episodes for this show, but I'm sure we're going to be talking more and more about AI. I think it's just going to be ingrained, just like cell phones and just like the internet was back in the day. Making myself feel old now. But thanks again, Jim. I really appreciate you being on the show again. I found this geek humor. Speaking about younger and older developers, this is perfect. Year zero. Let me write this code in one line with complex abstractions. I'm so clever. And and I'm on the right there. Let me write this code so I can understand it in the future. Right? Because, code quality and coding standards is important, not only for other people using and writing and fixing your code, but for you, because I've gone back to my own code in the past going, who wrote this? And then I look, I go, oh crap, I wrote it. So I always believe in the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid principle. I know there has to be complex code, but generally it should be pretty easy for anybody on the team to understand. But that's my opinion. As always, I hope you will help me help the kids in the slums of Delhi, India. There's a picture of when I was there a year and a half ago. This is a very, very worthy organization that really helps get these kids out of the slums, feeds them, trains them, schools them, teaches them skills that they can use to get a job on the outside and everything. And actually, Joe and I, when we were there, we donated 5 computers for the kids to not only learn, but, Dave, picture there on the left, told me that, a lot of the kids, in the orphanage have never even seen a computer. And so he was so happy when Joe and I brought those 5 computers for the kids. And so I hope that's helping. And but they also need funding, too, because they unfortunately don't get very much from the Indian government. So please go to thevoiceofslum.org as soon as the show is over in like 1 minute and donate whatever you can, because anything will help the kids. All right, so that's the end of the episode. Next month, we're taking the month off. Next month, July 7th, I'll be talking to Steve Stedman. Steve, I've been using one of Steve's products for a long time, and whenever I'm using a SQL database, I have to use his product. And so he's coming back on the show. We'll talk more about all that. And if you're using SQL Server, you need his tool. So go check him out. Tomorrow, I'm donating blood. It's my monthly donation. And I hope you will go out and donate blood too. Please, please, please. Every blood bank in America is dealing with a shortage right now. And they really, really need your blood desperately. And so, and with that, if you donate this weekend, I know you're probably going to seeing this on a recording, but if you donate this weekend, I will send you, if you live in America at least, I will give you a copy of my coding standards book just for donating blood. Just post it to my Twitter feed, that a picture of you donating blood this weekend, and I will send you a book while supplies last. And supplies meaning I have 3 to give out. So let's see. So go donate blood. Not only, it is America's in a shortage, but it'll make you feel better for doing it. It always makes me feel better once I walk away. So. Anyway, with that, I hope you'll email me any suggestions or comments about the show, guests you want me to invite on the show, to dotNetDave@live.com. And with that, I'll see you on July 7th.